Hi, Serge here, and welcome to another episode of the I'm a Fucking Man podcast. I am so excited that you're joining me today for what is an amazing conversation that I have with David Schilling. This is part of the series of talking about mental health with men so that they can share their journey, their struggles, their challenges, and how they move through their mental health experience. And David's story is very powerful. He talks about his experience of mental health and discovering that as a child and moving through his adolescence, early adulthood into where he is right now. He shares the struggles, the deep, dark challenges he experienced, and how he was able to move through. You are not going to be disappointed. I know you're going to enjoy this one. So thank you for joining me, and let's get right to it.
Hi, I'm Serge. I'm a husband, a father, a technical sales rep, and I'm also the founder and project developer of the IAFM League, a personal development league for men. And one of my missions is to give men the chance to have fun and challenge themselves while building consistency and growth in their lives. And this is my podcast. Here I'll speak with everyday men, just like you and me, to discuss their struggles, their successes, their passions, and desires to becoming the best version of themselves. So thanks for joining and welcome to the IAFM podcast.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of the IAFM podcast. I am extremely grateful that you are here, and I'm super grateful to have somebody that I'm meeting for the first time virtually, David Schilling. David, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it greatly. Today, we're going to talk mental health. This is part of a series of episodes that I want to do, speaking with men and talking about their experiences and journey through mental health, and whether it's the challenges, the struggles, and overcoming, moving past them. So I look forward to getting into that today. And as I mentioned before we got on this, feel free to, if there is anything that is difficult bringing up or moving through it, take your time. As I said, it's important for men to see this and talk about it, and I look forward to learning a little bit more about you and your journey. So first of all, how are you?
Well, first, that was quite the intro. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's great to finally meet you. We've been chatting a little bit back and forth prior to this recording, so
Yeah.
very, very nice to meet you. How am I doing? That is a loaded question, especially when you're talking to somebody who deals with mental health on the regular.
Okay.
It is always a fully loaded question. Right now, I'm feeling pretty good though.
Excellent. Excellent. So and the way this got set up is we know somebody mutually, somebody you went to
Mhm.
school with, somebody I used to work with, Amanda. So let's just get into it. Um, how did this start? When was there a realization that something was? When did you become aware of your mental health challenges or struggles?
Officially or unofficially, because it's two very different timelines.
Okay.
Officially, 2017 was when I got my diagnosis for anxiety and depression.
Okay.
That stemmed from a serious burnout episode, which we can absolutely talk about a little bit about the effects of burnout, and especially being men and how we have to always go, 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 no matter what, and there's no time for rest. So we can absolutely talk about that. But it started in 2017 with burnout, but I've always felt differently.
Okay.
I've always just felt like growing up as a kid, even I felt like there were two types of people: those who were meant to be happy and those who were meant to make those other people happy. So I felt like I was
Wow.
the second one who wasn't afforded the happiness aspect myself, but I was made. I was brought into this world, created by the universe, however you want to look at it. I was put on this earth to make other people happy.
And how old were
So
you?
that's
You're how old at this point?
before 10. I couldn't give you an exact number,
Wow.
like probably
Yeah.
8 to 10 years old.
And was there a specific, and thanks for sharing that. Was there a
Of course.
specific experience or moment that you're like, oh, this is what I feel like I'm meant to do, or
Um, well, looking back at it, it was going back as far as grade two. I've always wanted to be a scientist. I
Hmm.
loved science. I loved dinosaurs. I loved science. And we started watching Bill Nye
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
school and everything like that. So for me, that was my dream job at the time, was being Bill Nye the Science Guy, being able to be on TV, perform, and do science. And the more I started to perform, the more I realized I was very good at it. I was always able to make people laugh, no matter my personal mood. I was always able to bring other people out of their sadness and their darkness and just put a smile on other people's
Okay.
faces. So that's when I kind of realized that no matter how I felt inside, I made other people happy, and that was my role in life.
That's I resonate 1,000%. Because I was a very
Hmm.
shy kid. I was chubby and I was just insecure. But
Sure.
theater and performing, I learned, I was maybe in grade four or so,
Hmm.
uh, I could make other people laugh.
Hmm.
And so it was the only time that I didn't feel insecure. It was
Amazing.
it was the time where I was like, oh, and then I pursued that through to university and still in a way we're doing this, it's I feel comfortable being in front of a group of people. So I resonate so much with that. Okay, I
Hmm.
don't, I don't know how I feel in this moment, but other people seem to enjoy it, and that
Yeah.
brings me joy. I mean, was that something that made you feel better? Did it feel good to have the applause or the?
No, because it was just my job. That
Okay,
was my role in life. So it was the
wow,
applause meant my job was done.
yeah,
But I got into acting for that very reason as well, was the ability to almost hide in plain sight. Didn't matter how I felt, didn't matter what was going on. I could be somebody else. I could put on a face, and
yeah.
all of a sudden, nobody knows how I'm really feeling. I gotta hide from everybody, and that's
Okay.
how I felt. That's what really I think got me into acting in the first place, was those two feelings, being able to hide and making other people feel good.
See, that's wild. I've got two kids. They're 7 and 10,
Sure.
and the older one is very theatrical, uh,
Hmm.
and the younger one is shy, but he'll participate if his older brother is participating.
For
So,
sure.
I have forgotten, and talking about now, it brings me back to when I was a kid, but I look at my kids and go, and that's why I'm asking you this, like, how far back does it go? Because it can start at a very young age,
It's
and we don't. We're finally starting to. I mean, when we were kids, they didn't. I don't remember people talking about mental health. I don't remember people talking about ways to
no, not
resources.
not at
Resources
all.
to get help, and now thankfully it's starting to develop. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, and having you here talking about it is so important because there has to be more of it because there are many people
Absolutely.
out there that feel like they are alone. They feel like they're isolated. They can't relate to other people. So I mean, so growing up, you start becoming a performer, you start acting, you start feeling like this is my job. Um, and now you get into your teenage years. As
Mhm.
teenagers, now we have more responsibilities, we have different stresses, anxieties. So what was that transition like when it came related to whether it was mental health or feeling like I have to make other people happy to
Well, the
hide?
feeling never, yeah, for sure. The feeling never changed. Growing up, I always felt, uh, for lack of a better term, subservient to other people.
Okay.
It was whether I was performing or just doing things for other people. It was, again, it was just my job was to make other people's lives easier, make other people feel better. I found I got in my teen years. My first job was coaching gymnastics. I had been
Okay.
a gymnast my whole life,
Okay.
so easy transition into that world. And because of my performing background and because of my need to make other people feel good, working with kids just came naturally to me. So I was just able to just riff and just wing it
Yeah.
and click on my feet and I work very well in high stress situations. So again, working with kids, you always have to be on edge a little bit, and you're always, especially when you're dealing with sport and
Yeah.
kids are learning some pretty cool and crazy things. You got to be able to watch the kid you're working with, but plus then the seven others in your class. So it worked out perfectly for my brain because I was just always go 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 go. There was no rest time.
Okay.
Rest time for me is the devil. It is the bane of my existence
Okay.
because then I get locked in here. When I'm left to my own thoughts, I get very self destructive.
Okay.
So, performing, doing things for other people, always being on the go, 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 go was my way of masking, my way of hiding uh, um, what was really going on with me. So, it was a very unhealthy way of coping. And I just coped all the way up through high school, college, after work, and just constantly was just that was my suppression was just do for others.
Wow. So through that, because you talked about burnout a little bit, and we'll
Mhm.
jump into that. But um, did that bring you joy doing
Nope,
all? No,
nope,
no. It was a
nothing brought me.
survival mode.
At most, I got peace. I felt a little bit of peace knowing that I made other people feel good today. So it took the edge off, like taking like being up for 48 hours and having coffee keep you awake.
Oh my
At
gosh.
By the end of it, you are exhausted no matter what, but the coffee took the edge off so you can make it to your goal.
So because I'm guessing whether it was family or friends, they knew you as this type of person who was active, busy, um, entertaining. So did they, because I'm guessing if you were doing this to mask what was actually going through
Mhm.
inside, did anybody have any idea of what you were going through?
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
Nobody. Um, I didn't feel like I could speak to family. My friends were very just they were friends. We got together for social things.
Yeah.
It wasn't time to talk about what was
Yeah.
going on. It was time to play video games or
Yeah.
soccer or whatever it was we're doing. Right. So there again, when I was with my friends, when I was with my best friends, I was always distracted. So there was no real need. I was escaping in video games or
Yeah.
escaping in a soccer game. So I was able to stay in the moment and didn't need to worry about my issues. Sport was a physical outlet for the anxiety and the depression and things. If I was having a bad day, being an athlete really helped. You run a little extra harder, or you hit the
Yeah.
springboard a little extra harder, and it just gets out some of that frustration that gets built up with us when we don't physically speak what we're
Right.
dealing with. But I'll go as far as to let you know that my doctor didn't believe me when I went to him telling him that I was having catastrophic thoughts and
Oh
thoughts
my
of
gosh.
of of ending my existence. He didn't believe me because I was always the happy-go-lucky one.
And I think that's knowing a few people who have kind of felt the same way or
Mhm.
have been like people pleasers type of thing to,
Yep.
you know, that people didn't know. They're like, oh, but you seem so, and it's like, a great example is Robin Williams. Like
Perfect example. Yeah.
this man devoted his life to entertaining people, making people laugh, like go, go, go. And really he was suffering and
Yes.
didn't either feel comfortable or know how, or he was afraid to, whatever it may be. So it's something, and I'm glad you're sharing this. Thank you, because it's so important for not necessarily people to be aware, like, oh, that person's in a good mood. Maybe things aren't working out for them.
Right.
But that's the thing. You're totally. I was talking to somebody else about this when you're talking about your friends, especially from our youth. We
Mhm.
became friends because we had um, common things that
Activities.
we enjoyed. So whether it was sports,
Exactly.
video games, um, it wasn't like, wow, I connect with you on such a
Yeah,
profound.
exactly, exactly.
It
And
isn't
and
that.
when you're young, you don't know how to put into words how you're feeling. So I feel sad today. Well, as a boy, as a young man, as a kid, you just suck it up,
Yeah,
right? So you just learn, okay, I feel sad, suck it up. I don't get the response from my superiors, my elders that I'm looking for. So why would I come out and say
yeah,
anything? I'm just getting chastised
yeah,
for being sad.
yeah. I think that's fear that a lot of people live with, experience. I mean,
Yes.
that's something that my wife and I, we have two boys. So again, you make a great point that we never learned, hey, if you're sad or if you're not feeling well about something, share it, express it,
Yes.
whether it's writing it down, whether it's talking to somebody about it. You're right. As boys, generally speaking, we are taught to suck it up, be a man, don't be a pussy, don't
Hmm.
cry, all these things, man up, that we think, okay, if I want to be a real man, then that's what I need to do.
Of course.
When I, looking back, I learned that that is just, it's just, you're afraid. Somebody's
Exactly.
afraid to show vulnerability because they think it will show weakness. When it's like, no,
Hmm.
that is not weak at all. Um,
Well, and you can go as far as to look at media that we have right now. Like in the 90s when I was growing up, it was Power Rangers, it was all these super big macho guys winning and saving the day and getting
yeah,
the girl. And
yeah,
and the only vulnerable guys were in quote unquote chick flicks that
yeah,
were like, designed and sold and marketed specifically to women and females. And
yeah,
and as a man, where it's not socially acceptable to enjoy a good rom-com or anything like that, no matter how amazing the movie is. So
yeah,
there's absolutely zero connection for men to be with any emotion other than anger and pride and these horribly toxic emotions
mhm,
when they're not regulated
yeah,
properly.
yeah. Because you're right. If and that's what's sad is happiness is not known as being masculine.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's
Any
not.
positive emotion is not masculine at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And it's, I think for a lot of men, we grew up thinking, for me to be happy, and this is, something
Mhm.
that you've related to, is other people, as long as other people are okay and happy, then I'll be okay.
Yeah,
The whole idea of happy wife, happy life. It's like, so as long as she's happy, as long as my
I'll be
partner's
happy.
happy, then things are okay. As long as my kids
Very
are
fair. Yeah.
happy, then I'm a good father. You know?
Yes, but there's no looking for male happiness becomes selfish or
Yes.
or in a lot of ways. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and I'm gonna pause right there and just say I'm blessed with wonderful people in my life, especially now that don't have those restraints on me. So I don't
Yeah.
want I don't want men out there to think that that's how it is and
No,
and
exactly.
stuff. Like it's quite the opposite. But when you're growing up and when you don't have a lot of guidance on how to handle your own emotions, then you grasp at straws.
Right. So, moving through this through adolescence into,
Mhm.
your early 20s, were there any, did the anxiety build?
Oh yes.
Okay. So,
Social anxiety big time, and stemming from a lot of my own insecurities because of how this worked. I had a lot of anxiety around speaking to people I was attracted to.
okay.
So if I was attracted to, some girl in my class, uh, um, a lot of people will go out of their way to tell her in such a way that would make me feel super uncomfortable, thereby they thought it was a great time because I would literally run and hide. I would have like an actual panic attack. So
Yeah.
I would run and hide and freak out. My heart would be racing and my hands would go numb and I would be sweating and my vision would blur, like full blown panic attack.
Wow.
And everybody thought it would be hilarious, but they're just now building on the, well, I can't talk to girls because this happens and everybody finds it funny. So now I'm the loser in those romantic comedies that can't get the girls. So this is now my role. I am the court jester role. So everything in my life just sort of perpetuated that thought that I am in this jester. I am the court jester that is here to please
Yeah.
the table.
Yeah. So what steps did you start to take to kind of move through that?
I didn't, to be very honest.
Okay.
Because I thought it was just how I was made.
Okay.
Even growing up into adulthood, it wasn't until I had my burnout that I took my mental health seriously. Until then, I just thought this was it. This was who I was. Even battling super dark thoughts and things on my own and stuff. It wasn't until my burnout in 2017, the very start of 2017 was when I couldn't go anymore.
I mean, you bring something up that I actually talked with his name's Patrick, who I had on the other episode, and he talked about he was 16 or 17, and he was going to take his life one
Yeah.
night, and didn't, and found out that a friend of his or somebody he knew mutually had, and
Right.
so that took away from the focus on him in a way, and be like, okay, I've got to focus on this. Um, and it's something that, the stats, and that's something I've learned more recently through being working with no stigmas and promoting them, and the stats are scary when it comes
Yeah.
to suicide, and there's such a large percentage that is under 30, and
Mhm.
the stats for men to women is double.
Right.
Um, because I think, just like you talked about, things that we don't share, we don't express, we are afraid of what other people will think, how they'll react.
Mhm.
Okay, this is, I can move, I can do this on my own because I'm a man. Um, so you have this burnout, and walk me through that. Was
Sure.
it just like half, I'm done type of thing?
Realistically, no, but I didn't see any of the signs. At the time, I was working three jobs, six, sometimes 7 days a week. Um, I had terrible roommates at the time, so I was supporting them financially as well. That's why I was working as much as I was.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, there was one day, early January, where I could not wake up. I
Okay.
just, I just, I just could not wake up. My brain would be conscious and awake. I could hear other people speaking and talking and things, but physically, my eyes couldn't open. I was laying on my couch and
Wow.
I just could not open my eyes. And I was like that for about 3 days. I'd wake up, I'd have a meal and couldn't finish my meal. I'd fall back asleep.
So when you're going through this, do you just think, okay, I have some horrible flu of some sort? Like, it's just pure exhaustion.
I knew, I think I knew deep down that it was mental health related, just
Okay.
because it was physically I'm fine. Because I shouldn't be doing this. What's wrong with you? Like the thought
Okay.
really took over at that point. So then it became very alarming, and I called my doctor within the month.
Okay.
This was the doctor that didn't
Didn't
believe
believe
me.
me.
Yeah,
After you said I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days.
couldn't get
Uh,
out of bed for 3 days. I'm
he said,
having
"Oh, you're
thoughts that
working
are
too
horrible.
much." Yeah. Um, so you live that. It's scary.
Hmm.
Um, did you, other than your doctor, you didn't talk to anybody really about it, or?
Well, I was just starting to advocate for mental health at that time as well,
Okay.
because I had known some people who were dealing with some things and stuff like that. So I was trying to support them and learn a little bit more about struggles and stuff. And with that, I found out a lot about me.
Okay.
Um, but it was it no one really knew
Yeah.
until I had issues booking an appointment with my doctor.
Okay.
Um, it took 18 months from the time I first called my doctor saying I was suicidal, I was having horrible thoughts and things. It took 18 months from that phone call to the time I got an appointment.
Come
And
on.
the only reason I got an appointment was because I told my mother like a child, and my mom stormed into the office and refused to leave until I had an appointment. So
Wow.
when I tell you nobody believed me, nobody believed me.
So you tell your mom, she's obviously scared.
Yeah, of course. She took matters at that point into her own hands and stormed the Capitol, pardon the
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
But
So, but you had never talked to her about this before.
I had kind of hinted that I wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
Um, but not really, not to the extent that
Yeah.
I didn't tell
Yeah.
her as bad as I was.
Yeah. Because you didn't want to worry her, I'm guessing, or
Yeah, it was I didn't want to worry her, but also why am I complaining about my role in life? Like again, like this just that childhood core thought. It became a core memory of or a core belief, sorry, that this was my role in life. No matter what, this was
gee,
my role in life. So
that's
that
heavy.
had ingrained so much into my brain that I just never spoke.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm guessing you became it came to a point where you believe this is just who I am.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I mean that I don't know what that feels like, but that must be just a continuous weight, like a mental load, which ultimately becomes a somewhat physical load. I mean, you talked about exercise and physical activity and how that helps to shed some of this stuff. I mean, uh, I think physical activity is so important when it comes to mental health because when you're
Absolutely.
doing some type of whether it's running or lifting something or you're often not thinking about the crap that you're
And for me, it was actually the opposite. I would be able to process information a lot better when
ah
if I was being active because you kick that soccer ball, you kick it extra hard and it goes
yeah
way off. And it's like, oh, stupid F in class. I can't believe I failed that exam. And you kick the ball a little harder next
okay
time. And it's like, well, hey, you didn't study hard enough. You got to take some ownership for X, Y, Z. So I was able to process
oh that's
and work
amazing
through some intense feeling solo because of sport, and I was able to put some of the negativity into my physical action
yeah.
and release it that way. So it became very healthy for me to stick with sport.
Well, I think that's it's fascinating that it was also a way for you to, as you just said, to take responsibility and
Yeah.
ownership instead of just blaming,
Yeah.
outside sources, which often I think a lot of people do. Unfortunately, they say, "Oh, it's
Mhm.
that person's fault," or "It's that teacher didn't blah blah blah," or "That coach didn't blah blah blah," or "My parent
Of
didn't blah blah
course.
blah," as opposed to going, "Oh, you know what? I should have." I should have listened or studied or whatever. I mean, that's
Exactly.
I'm glad you bring that up because it's the first time I hear that point of view.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to share that. That's fantastic. So you tell your doctor it takes a year and a half before you get an appointment. He doesn't believe you. You leave there with what? Here are some meds. Come back in another.
I got a medication for mild anxiety, and he prescribed me gabapentin, which is apparently a placebo. So I
Yeah.
got I got I got next to no help from him. He got a call from, or my mom got a call 2 days later, which then she called him right away, and I was done. I was ready to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he then gave me a referral. He then admitted that my um health issues, challenges, my mental health challenges were out of his
Right.
area of expertise,
Yeah.
finally,
Yeah.
and
No shit.
gave me a yeah, exactly, and gave me a referral to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health,
Okay.
which saved my life.
Amazing. Well, then let's talk about. I mean, at least he did that. I don't know why
Yeah.
he wouldn't have done that from the very beginning, but um, so let's talk about that. You get referred to this. Did you go
Mhm.
right away? Did you feel
There was a
uncomfortable?
3 month wait period.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just to get in to see a psychiatrist. So there's a 3 month wait period, which was a battle, but I made it through.
Right.
And walking into that facility. Now, take my story with a grain of salt. I know a lot of people who have had negative experiences with mental health facilities
Okay.
in general. Where but the person that I saw, the psychiatrist that I saw, believe me, it was the first time in my entire life when it came to my mental health that somebody believed me.
Okay.
And the weight that instantly came off my shoulders,
Amazing.
astronomical.
Yeah.
My my posture was better. Like when I tell you the weight that was lifted off of
Yeah.
my shoulders, I was walking with my head higher. And I was going through hell still, but
Yeah.
the justification that I felt, I felt justified in my feelings, my beliefs, because somebody believed me and said, "You're not well." That was enough to get me through treatment.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you find somebody that you can trust
Yes.
to share your journey, your struggles, your
Mhm.
challenges, your what you're going through. This person listens, believes you. What were some of the things that they recommended you practice or work on or be aware of?
Yeah, well, they warned me actually. Well, exercise, obviously,
Okay.
eating, and when you can't eat, a meal replacement, a meal supplement of some kind, just because your body needs nutrients, whether you're hungry or not. So I lived off of Slim Fast milk, like just like a Slim Fast
Yeah, yeah.
a meal replacement shake. That was my savior. It kept calories on me while I lost. I went from 240 down to about 160, I think,
Oh, okay.
in 3 or 4 months. Like
Oh my
unhealthy
gosh.
amount of weight that I lost because of my mental health. So meal replacements, getting nutrients into your system, exercise, um, avoid meditation. I was told not to meditate
Okay.
because being alone with my thoughts was
Wasn't helping you.
it was to the point where it was almost killing.
Yeah.
So it was, don't meditate. I know everybody says, "Oh, you got to meditate in the sun and feel good and get refreshed and energized." And it's like, no, 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 no. Your
Yeah.
mental state is not at a point where you can find peace doing that action.
Yeah.
Journaling was a big one,
Mm-hmm.
and forgiving myself,
Mm.
being patient with myself, and forgiving myself, because the way my brain processed information was everything was my fault.
Yeah.
So if something didn't go right, it was my job as the court jester to make everybody's life happy. When somebody was unhappy, especially unhappy with me, well, that was just end of the world for me.
So I'm glad you're bringing this up. Journaling. Patrick talked about that as well. How it was very he went to see a therapist, and that was it took him I don't know how many months or how many years before he started journaling, and
Yeah.
he found it extremely therapeutic. the forgiving yourself, that is so important. So what was that process like for you?
It didn't exist at first. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and I had to start with the now.
Okay.
I couldn't forgive myself for things that happened, or the way I thought, the way I felt. It's too deep inside me.
Yeah.
It was, "Oh, I forgot to make coffee this morning." Instead of freaking out of myself and calling myself a whole bunch of worthless names
Yeah.
and this and that and all that kind of stuff, it's, "Oh, you're here now, make coffee now."
Mm,
So it started off very simple. I had to train myself to be forgiving, because for myself.
yeah.
Um, and there was a line in a song that really, really just resonated with me. And the line of the song is, "I wouldn't talk to a friend the way I talk to myself."
Mm.
But
Yeah,
why?
that's I did another episode, this was last year, where his name's Peter. He was talking about if a friend was talking bad about themselves, he would say, "Hey, don't talk like that about my best friend."
Yeah.
As a like, don't, and it would
Don't
like
talk about my
shake.
best friend like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's fantastic. I love that.
yeah. So
Um,
I mean, and the thing I think that is important for people to know, it takes time. And it's these simple little, I mean, you just brought that example up, the coffee thing, where because we do get caught up in this didn't work, this, and then all these things can build, and then you're like, this day fucking sucks.
exactly.
And if we step back and go, okay, wait a minute, it's because I forgot to make coffee, or
Mhm.
uh somebody cut me off, which is out of my control, or
Yes,
these things where it builds and builds, and you know and then it amplifies. So how long did that journey take you to feel comfortable, like, okay, I've got a better grasp of being aware of this now?
well, what year is it now? Um, it's taken me 7 years, and
Yeah,
I'm still working.
yeah,
There are still core thoughts and core beliefs that
yeah,
I can't shake.
yeah.
Um, so my compromise with the things that I can't break just yet is, I have two modes of thought: real world and mental health.
Okay.
So the mental health stuff, well, that's just how your brain perceives information. It's not that bad. It's not as bad as
Right,
you're making it out to be. The real world stuff, that's a different story. But those are real world stressors. Those are stressors that anybody would be agitated by.
right.
So is it a real world stressor, or is it a mental health stressor? Well, if it's a real world stressor, how do we work through it?
Okay.
If it's a mental health stressor, how can I process this information? And having that duality within myself really helps me process, and it helps me figure out what side of my brain needs to be working a little harder right now.
Right. So was you mentioned journaling? Was journaling part of that process? Uh,
Um, yes and no. I did more free writing than journaling.
okay.
Because for me, journaling was like dear diary, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, that's not who I am. Like, I
Yeah.
can't like just
Yeah.
like complain about other people. So
Okay.
I would free write any thought, anything that would come into my brain, no matter if I finished the sentence or finished the thought
Yeah.
or not. It was just, that was the continuation of that line, and continuing and
Yeah.
continuing and continuing all the way through. So free writing for me, baby, became my form of journaling.
And was that something that was daily, weekly, whenever you felt comfortable doing it?
Whenever I felt the need,
Yeah.
um, so it wasn't a daily routine. It started off daily, but then kind of faded out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that lasted from the
About a
being.
year.
Okay.
January 2018 was when things got really good for me.
Okay.
I met somebody.
Okay.
I was kind of going back to the whole social anxiety, not being able to speak to women I was attracted to or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, I was single 9 years,
Okay.
so from 2018, so 2009 to 2018. Not a couple of dates here and there, but just
Yeah.
notoriously single.
Yeah.
Then I met somebody who reached out to me and told me their feelings for me, which was out of the ordinary, but it took the pressure off of my role as the man and
Yeah.
having to say something. And I'm also the old-fashioned man, pardon all the air quotations, but the
Yeah.
whole you gotta say something in person, you gotta impress the family, you gotta do all that kind of stuff, which
Okay.
puts a lot of pressure on somebody with anxiety.
Yeah.
I got to do all of this stuff that I'm not physically able to do, so I'm just not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So Rachel was fantastic, big mental health advocate as well. So we really bonded over our mental health.
Okay.
And yeah, the start of 2018, still had my struggles and my challenges, but I was seeing somebody who understood those challenges.
Right.
What a liberating feeling that is. Just to have somebody that you're not fighting with that just understands that if you need quiet company, they're just there.
Yeah.
They don't expect anything from you. They don't have any expectations. It's there. It's a wonderful feeling.
So when and she was aware of what you were going through? Yeah.
Absolutely, very
Yeah.
much so.
So so now you are starting, I mean, you talked about the therapist and now Rachel. Um, was there other, so now you're feeling comfortable talking about this, so you're starting to express more of this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking about. Were there other people that you started feeling more comfortable sharing this with?
I don't know if it was a comfort thing or just a lack of ability to mask at this point.
Okay.
I was just so broken as a person that
Yeah.
I could not mask anymore.
Yeah.
So that is what I think the that's what I think got people to almost reach out to me and
Yeah.
let me know that they were struggling because I was struggling and I couldn't hide it. So I'd have people come to me in confidence and just say, "Hey, look, like this is where my head's at. I'm really here, here, and here." And so I would be like, "Hey, I'm here, here, and here too." So through 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 my inability to mask, I was able to find a voice.
Amazing. Did you and I'm guessing that was liberating as well to finally have.
It was a bit of a snowball effect. It was
Okay.
scary at first,
Yeah.
um, but I found it very healing in the process, so the fear became worth it.
Yeah. Amazing.
I actually started a YouTube channel based on my mental health, and it became an outlet for me to speak to people while only speaking to a camera.
Yeah.
So I could be alone in a room and I could dish and vent and talk about anything and everything that was upsetting me, and people would hear it, but I'd have the safety of not speaking to people directly.
So let's talk about that. This is what
Yeah,
we're seeing chilling with Schilling.
shilling or shilling, absolutely.
um, so what prompted that? Because I think it's fantastic. In a way, it is a form of journaling, just
Mhm.
talking to, and I agree with you that the camera will not judge you. The
Oh,
comment, the camera won't say anything. The camera,
nope.
you know. So let's how did that, was it something that you thought of? Was it something you had seen
Well,
elsewhere? Or?
as a joke, I always I wanted to be an actor. I went to school for
Yeah,
acting and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. Um, Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit
yeah,
oh, crunchy on my back. So I always wanted to be an actor, and then when that kind of faded because my mental health wasn't where it was like, well, hey, I could have a talk show and I could host actors and still be in the world and things. And
Yeah.
and I would have my own Ellen show, a daytime talk show, and I would, as a joke, I said I call it chilling with Shilling.
Okay.
And then the ability for me to have a YouTube channel started, and I was like, I really want to do this, and I could interview my friends, and we could talk about acting, and we could talk about whatever we wanted
Yeah.
to, because it's my podcast, it's
Yeah.
my show, I could do whatever I want, and that's how it started.
And this is in what year?
2017.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
January 8th, 2017 was when I recorded my first podcast episode.
Okay. So I want to fast forward to something
Yeah.
that, because you just made me think of this, something that we all lived,
Mhm.
COVID, pandemic.
Sure.
You're isolated, you can't see people, um, you can't be in physical contact with people. What was that experience for you?
Well, I'm going to answer that question by sort of explaining where my mental health was at that time.
Yeah.
Um, to backtrack, I was engaged to Rachel
Okay.
in August, and unfortunately, she lost her battle with mental health, August
Oh,
27th, 2018.
wow.
So to go from the happiest person in the world, the happiest I had ever been in my entire life, to nothing
Yeah.
with one phone call. So, my mental health was, let's just say the only reason I'm still here is because of a promise I made to Rachel.
Okay.
That's just it was the only thing that kept me going, was a promise at her funeral that no harm would come to me by my own hand.
Wow.
And so I was on disability at the time. I got onto disability because of that, and with that came a PTSD diagnosis. So I now have depression, anxiety, PTSD,
Okay.
and so fast forwarding a little bit to answer your question, at the start of COVID, it was just no different for me.
Okay.
Everything was locked down, everything was shut down, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm stuck in my room that I never leave anyways because I have anxiety, and leaving my room for more than an hour at a time triggers my anxiety." So for me, COVID was no different. I found out who my true friends were during COVID, if
Okay.
anything, because I lost a lot of friends over COVID, and it was
Wow.
because I couldn't physically be there for people. That's what it came down to.
Really?
Yeah, my mental health, it became people, and I had one person specifically told me that they weighed the pros and cons, and I was too much to handle because of my mental health. You weigh the pros and cons of my friendship because of my mental health. So it was very eye-opening for me. COVID, the start of COVID was very eye-opening for me.
I'm sorry to hear that. And
No,
and
I mean, it
and
happens.
and thank you. I know you're sharing some heavy stuff here, and I know
Yeah, for sure.
it's and I appreciate you doing so, because it's something that people need to hear,
Mhm,
and how you move through it. So okay, so you live this experience with Rachel,
mhm,
that you go from this peak of like, oh my gosh, we're engaged, I'm happy, and then it changes quickly.
mhm.
Did you feel
Have you
like
have you watched have you watched Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
a long time ago? Yes.
Okay. Um, you know the scene where Gandalf, the whole "fly, you fools," and he's fighting the Balrog, and he just falls into that giant cavern and free falls for all of
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah.
That's what I felt the moment I got that phone call. That's what I felt. I was in free fall, and there was no bottom. But
Okay.
I
So,
thought I was in rock bottom before, with my mental health the way it
yeah.
was, and then I found out there was a whole nother level of low, and so there was just no ground. It was just a bottomless pit that I had entered.
So obviously, this was not something that you were aware was potentially going to happen.
Oh, not I because we were both mental health advocates, we
Yeah,
both knew that we were struggling. Um, but she kept from me the severity of
yeah,
her challenges.
yeah,
I think because I was so open about how much I was struggling, she didn't want to feel like a burden, which, if
right.
there's one thing I can tell people who are watching, you are not ever a burden.
Yeah,
If someone tells you you are, find better friends.
yeah. It's I think I can think of a time where my wife and I we've been together 13 plus years, and but for a period we've been married for 11, and about 6-ish years ago things were not good, and we were separated, and but I didn't talk to people about it. I was traveling for work, so I didn't move out, but I was away 3 weeks out of the month, and so on the weekends I was sleeping in my son's bedroom, and I had a bunch of shame and guilt about like feeling like I had failed as a husband, feeling like I had failed as a man, but I didn't talk to anybody about it, or because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm gonna talk to people about my problems. They don't want to hear about it. And it was through, you know, a few people kind of reaching out. I can remember
Mhm.
one buddy especially, and then me just feeling comfortable enough to tell him like this is what's happening, and then starting to feel comfortable telling a few family members, um, but not revealing like this is how I feel. This sucks. It's just kind of like this is what's happening. Um, but then it snowballed into eventually me expressing to my wife like this is how I feel. And I remember I was bawling. And I've shared this before, but I was driving on the 401. It was a snowstorm, it was a blizzard, and we had just had a weekend. We went down for my grandma's funeral. Anyway, so it was a time for us to just be together, her and I, and I just bawled and shared all these feelings I didn't express to anybody. And I remember saying to her, I said, "I'm sorry that I'm being so weak right now." And she said, "This is not weakness. This is strength." And
Yes.
hearing that was so therapeutic,
Mhm.
because it just kind of erased a lot of thoughts I had about whether it is being a man, whether it is being um, a husband, just like I have to be strong through this all. It's like, oh, it's okay to release this,
Yes.
because it takes balls to be able to do that, whether you they think it or believe it or not. Like it's
So
so
was that your light bulb moment then? Your
that
your
was
your
that
your
was
your, your click?
for that was a big one. That was a big
Sure.
one. Afterwards, I joined a men's group that one of my
Mhm.
friends he still leads. I was in that for a number of years, and one things that you touched on was forgiveness, and that's something that I learned, which was so important about forgiving myself for you know because I can't be a better husband. I can't be a better father. I can't be a better coworker, community member, uh, if I can't forgive myself.
Of course.
And one of the things I learned was, especially, and also to forgive other people,
Mhm.
and not forgiving. You don't have to necessarily forgive the action that was done might be unforgivable, but forgiving the person for who they were in that moment, because I think that's something that we often forget. Somebody who is doing something in that moment has their own uh,
Yes.
traumas, triggers, experiences that have built up to that moment. It doesn't
Mhm.
get them off the hook, but it's they were experiencing something to whether
They
do
were.
or say or that. So that was very therapeutic for me to go, oh, not and not telling them in like face to face, I forgive you but just to
Give them in your
be
own mind.
alone and do,
Yeah.
whether it was journaling or and go, oh, I can forgive that person and then I'll be happier or I won't
Mhm.
be as triggered when I'm around them or they say something. It's like, okay, you're doing or saying that because this is your past or
Mhm.
who you might feel is what is your identity, which is, things that you were sharing that you felt it was your identity. This is who I have to be. This is what I have to do. This is
Exactly.
how I have to act because it's who I am.
Mhm.
I think a lot of uh, we we associate an emotion like a feeling with an identity. I am
Yes.
angry as opposed to I feel angry. I'm not an angry
Mhm.
person, but if you keep saying to ourselves, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm unhealthy, I'm unhealthy, I'm unhealthy, as opposed to I feel stress, I feel angry, I
Yes.
feel sad, I feel happy. These are it.
It's an emotion, not an identity.
Yeah, but unfortunately, a lot of people associate that emotion with an identity, which
Mhm.
and then it becomes well, it's just who I am. It's just it's just who I am. That's how I'm gonna. And it's like, okay. So that was another big moment for me. But that moment, to answer your question, was very uh, like, oh, it was just very liberating. And it that was one of the first steps of our relationship healing. I had to do a lot of work,
Of course.
um, but it moved things moved in a very good direction in a very short period of time, which I'm extremely
Amazing.
grateful for. Um, and I don't know how we got onto that tangent, but I'm glad
Well,
you
I
asked.
asked you. I asked you about your clicking light bulb
Yeah,
moment.
light bulb. But I don't know
Um.
why I
Um.
got into that we were talking about weakness and the strength and sharing vulnerability. I think that's what
Mhm.
led to that.
Yeah.
Um, so now, okay, so then we were talking about that as well. So you're free falling. This
Mhm.
is your feeling. Now, I'm were these the things that you had experienced pre 2017, did they come back, or now that you had more tools to go, this is how I deal with this? How did that?
It took a while, but I was able to remember my parachute. Um, which it doesn't stop the fall, but it slows
Yeah,
it down enough that you
yeah,
can land properly.
yeah,
So I didn't hit rock bottom. I landed on rock bottom, which
yeah,
what I think it kept me alive was that I
yeah,
had a wonderful support system. I had the tools ingrained in me enough at the time that when life got turned upside down, I was able to just kind of rely on what I had learned.
right. Right. And as you shared, learning who your friends, your real friends were. I mean, that
Mhm.
sucks to go, okay, well, I can't trust you. I can't count on you. Or you don't want to be part of my life because of something that I'm experiencing. Uh,
Yep.
I'm guessing, did that help strengthen other relationships?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it really taught me what to look for,
Okay.
um, in friendships and relationships and everything, and it really sort of put into perspective what's important to me,
Amazing.
um,
Okay.
and because of that, I was able to find the person I'm seeing now, and
Okay.
to have that kind of a support system, especially after everything that I've gone through,
Yeah.
and to still have that kind of support system is it's life changing.
Right.
Um, my current partner actually helped me find my ADHD diagnosis.
Okay.
which if I was diagnosed ADHD as a child, the depression, the anxiety, the negative thoughts, the thinking how I did wouldn't have happened because I would have been on a treatment plan for what was actually the cause.
Right.
So I was thinking differently. I thought I was different, and I was. I'm neurodivergent, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's just I have a different way of processing information. And had I known that younger, it wouldn't have led to the self ostracized that I was. I ostracized myself from everybody because I thought differently. I was the court jester,
Yeah.
and so because of that, it led to a lot of horrible diagnoses, or it led to a lot of traumatizing experiences that caused a lot of
Yeah.
horrible diagnoses.
Yeah.
Um, so if I had one piece of advice to people, it would be keep digging.
Okay.
If you have anxiety, it might not just be anxiety. There might be something else. If you have depression, if you've always had depression, dig deeper. I mean, it could just be that you have a case of clinical depression, and so be it. But in
Hmm.
my case, it was so much more.
Right.
And because of that diagnosis that I got from my girl, no, I shouldn't say that I got from my girlfriend, but she sort of led me down that path
Yeah.
of hey, I think you think this way. And I was like, I do. And I think you think this way. I do. Well, maybe you have ADHD. I do.
Okay.
So I have that diagnosis. I'm medicated for that. I'm on a therapy and treatment plan for that, as well as everything else that I'm
Yeah.
struggling with. And it's just it was a life-changing diagnosis. Being diagnosed with my ADHD was just that was my light bulb moment. That was my clicking moment. Was just, oh, I'm not broken. I'm just different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Of course.
because I think for a lot of people, for a long time, and finally now there are resources and tools and outlets for people to share what they're going
Hmm.
through. But I think for a long time, and I think especially for men, there is we don't want to share um, that something is wrong or
Yeah.
that we're experiencing some form of pain because we might make it going back to the idea of looking weak or appearing weak or I like you talked about these ideas of when we were growing up these superhero. I watched
Mhm.
I was very big into wrestling when I was a kid.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
like this Hulk Hogan larger than life. I was like, wow, Arnold Schwarzenegger, these like those are real men.
Yes. And who
Um,
am I? I'm just this little tiny.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we see that image of like, okay, that's what either people want or it's appealing or it's strong, but um unfortunately it didn't show any emotional intelligence. It didn't
No.
show vulnerability. um it was just like we hide it and we will beat the bad guy because
Yes. Yes. I can take a bullet. I don't need
yeah,
to cry. Like,
yeah, yeah. Um, so, I think we're moving finally past
it's
that.
about time.
Yeah, yeah, and
It's
and that's
about
what
time.
I
Yeah.
think that's me learning more about, or just being more aware of mental health, and it's like from my personal experience, like, why did it take this long? I don't know if it's because of social media. I don't know if it's because of things like that, the internet or whatever it may be that communities are created online.
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe that's one of the reasons. I mean, let's talk about that. Are you part of any communities or whether it's online or in person that,
I'm part of a few. Actually, one of my best friends is from the UK, and we met online through a mental health support group.
okay, okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And that's been since
2019.
okay, okay. And that's something you guys, is it on a monthly basis? Is it,
Oh, him and I talk every day now.
oh,
The
okay.
the group has since disbanded, but him and I talk daily. We are in
Okay.
constant contact about our mental health, and are always just checking in with one another, making sure that
Oh, that's
us
awesome.
bros are doing okay.
That's awesome. So, um, I want to wrap up shortly here, but one thing you mentioned, and you talked about the advice for people. One of them is dig deeper, dig, learn more about yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
you've experienced, whether it was therapy, whether it was seeing a doctor, learning about diagnosis, getting medicated. Um, sharing, talking to somebody on a daily basis. You've talked about journaling. Has there been anything that you want to try or do that you just haven't yet when it comes to working through? Uh, you've talked about physical activity. That's another one. I mean, there's so many things that you've shared, which is fantastic.
I think I've dabbled in just about I shouldn't say that because there's always new treatments
Yeah,
coming out and things like
yeah,
that. I'm actually the psychiatrist that I'm working with now has entered me into a brand new study to see some of the effects of certain things that and see if they have an effect on mental health and depression specifically. So I'm excited. I get brain scans of my own brain and things. So I'm looking forward to that kind of
amazing.
stuff, which is
Okay,
super cool. But I have dabbled in a lot of it, and in a lot of it, medication, recreational, like cannabis, as well
yeah,
as psilocybin. I've tried talk therapy, and I've dabbled in pretty much all the major facets of mental health.
okay,
And to be very honest, you need to dabble in almost all of them yourself to be very successful in your
yeah,
journey. Medication isn't for everyone. I'm not going to sit here and be a pill
yeah,
pusher for
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Pharmaceuticals have saved my life, so
yeah,
I talk about it from that perspective. But having a group, like a support group, whether it be family and friends or an online support group, going to therapy, talking with a psychiatrist, uh, um, staying active, volunteering, giving back to the community for me
mm,
is a big one. To
okay,
be able to have a sense of being having a sense of feeling fulfilled without it feeling selfish. You're just giving to somebody else, somebody
wow,
who might be less than you, or have it harder than you.
right.
So it just kind of puts life into
That's
perspective a
awesome.
little bit, helping people out.
I love, thank you for sharing that. That's, I mean,
Of course.
a lot of important uh, points, but I think that's something that we often forget, that by helping other people, it brings us, it can bring us a lot of joy
Absolutely.
and perspective as well. When it's
Yes.
like, oh wait, this is what this person is going through, um, and I can have a positive impact on them. I think that's it's amazing, especially with what you have lived, and having the strength. I commend you for the strength, um, uh, to move through this journey that you've had, um, because it does take strength. It does take. It's not just okay. Well, it's not a one and done, like you've said.
No.
So it's important for people to learn that. It's important for people to be aware of it. And like you said, some things might work better than other things, and it's just finding
Mhm.
what works best for you. And then when you do have something that might trigger something, you have those you have that tool set or resources or outlets to go to. And I think that's something that's a big takeaway for me from this conversation, is not being afraid to try different things, and
Yes.
just not going, okay, well, I tried that, that didn't work, I guess I'm done. It's like,
Mhm.
well, let's do this, let's do, and being open to all these things, I think is, from what I've gotten from this conversation, is crucial.
You
Uh,
don't know what's going to fit best for you. You don't know
yeah,
what mode is going to heal you the best, the quickest, the most reliably. So you have to try different things.
yeah. Amazing. So where you have your website, your YouTube channel, Chilling with
My
Shilling.
YouTube channel. Whoops.
Yeah.
Chilling with Schilling.
So I'm gonna.
Head on over to YouTube. Chilling with Schilling. I talk a lot about my experiences, my mental health, and things like that. I do also, for those people who have noticed, I have a little dog sitting on my lap.
Yeah.
Um, so just you do. I don't know if you saw a little head poking up here
Yeah.
and there. I
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
make it clear that it's
Has
not a
that as
thing of
quickly has that been therapeutic?
life changing. Having puppy energy or having dog energy is just life changing.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'll put that in the comments
I
section
appreciate that.
for Chilling with Shilling on YouTube. And I want to thank you so much for this
Thank
conversation.
you very much
Uh,
for not just for this conversation, but for starting the podcast and trying to bring awareness to mental health, especially with those of us in the stubborn gender that don't know how to communicate properly. It's
well,
very
it's thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, that's something that I'm becoming very passionate about creating awareness
wonderful.
because there is just not enough of it. Mental health, in my opinion, is something that every single person experiences
Mhm.
somehow, some way, in one capacity or another. We all have stresses, we all have anxieties, and we often don't know how to move through them.
Exactly.
You sharing your story, your journey, I would down the road love to have another chat with you.
I
And,
would absolutely love that myself and just have a bit of an update where
yeah,
we are now.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's important for a lot of people. So, um, thank you so much, David. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
This has been incredible. Um, I didn't know what to expect from this, but it was fantastic. It was greater than I thought. Not that I had a certain expectation, but your openness, your and it might be the performer in you. Not that you were performing, but you were just. It was just easy to talk with you, and
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
yeah. It's I think that's important for people to see and hear. Um, so thank you. So for all our other viewers out there, again, I'm going to put David's information. You can check him out on Instagram and on Facebook, right? Facebook.
Chilling with Schilling, it's at chilling.with.schilling on Instagram.
Okay.
And I keep my Facebook privates for family and
Yeah,
friends.
yeah. Perfect. Excellent. Well, then I'll put that as well in the comments. So for everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining me. Again, this is part of a series on mental health, men talking about it, sharing their stories, their journeys, and I think I'm looking forward to hearing more and learning now that we're following each other to sharing to learning, following your journey, David. So.
I appreciate that. And I look forward to watching more episodes of this podcast.
And I look forward to watching Chilling with Shilling. Thank you. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time.
Don't forget, tell your friends.
Yes, yes. I told you it was going to be good. That was an incredible conversation with David. I'm so grateful for his openness, his vulnerability, and sharing things that a lot of people might not be comfortable sharing. A lot of things blew my mind, and I think you saw that in the conversation. Whether it was his realization at a very young age of what he was experiencing, people not believing him, that he was going through these challenges and mental health struggles, and just the steps he experienced moving through that into where he has found a place where he can get out of bed, where he can move through the day, where he has all these tools and resources to help him. And I'm so grateful that he got to share this for other people to hear their story, to hear his story, and maybe relate to what he has experienced. So thank you very much for tuning in. Again, as always, I send you positive health, wealth, love, and happiness because you deserve it. Until next time, see you soon.